Yes, but who is to lead the charge and decide which borders we are to fight for? What about the borders 6,000 miles away, unrelated to our own contiguous borders and our own national security? Stating a relative truism regarding the frequency of war throughout history should hardly be the moral justification for expanding the concept of war to settle man's disputes. How can one call this progress? Machiavelli, Ledeen, and the neocons recognize a need to generate a religious zeal for promoting the state. This, he claims, is especially necessary when force is used to promote an agenda. It's been true throughout history and remains true today. Each side of major conflicts invoke God's approval. Our side refers to a crusade, theirs to a holy jihad. Too many wars boil down to their God against our God. It seems this principle is more a cynical effort to gain approval from the masses, especially those most likely to be killed for the sake of the war promoters on both sides who have power, prestige, and wealth at stake. Ledeen explains why God must always be on the side of the advocates of war. Quote, "Without fear of God, no state can last long, for the dread of eternal damnation keeps men in line, causes them to honor their promises, and inspires them to risk their lives for the common good." Close quote. It seems dying for the common good has gained a higher moral status than eternal salvation of one's soul. He goes on to say, quote, "Without fear of punishment, men will not obey laws that force them to act contrary to their passions. Without fear of arms, the state cannot enforce the laws. To this end, Machiavelli wants leaders to make the state spectacular." It's of interest to note that some large Christian denominations have joined the neoconservatives in promoting preemptive war, while completely ignoring the Christian doctrine of a just war. The neocons saw and openly welcomed their support. I'd like someone to glean anything from what the founders said or placed in the Constitution that agrees with this now professed doctrine of a spectacular state, promoted by those who now have so much influence on our policies here at home and abroad. Ledeen argues that this religious element, this fear of God, is needed for discipline of those who may be hesitant to sacrifice their lives for the good of the spectacular state. He explains in eerie terms, quote, "Dying for one's country doesn't come naturally. Modern armies raised from the populace must be inspired, motivated, indoctrinated. Religion is central to the military enterprise, for men are more likely to risk their lives if they believe they will be rewarded forever after for serving their country," close quote. This is an admonition that might just as well have been given by Osama bin Laden in rallying his troops to sacrifice their lives to kill the invading infidels, as by our ally who greatly influence our foreign policy. Neocons, anxious for the U.S. to use force to realign the boundaries and change regimes in the Middle East, clearly understand the benefit of a galvanizing and emotional event to rally the people to their cause. Without a special event, they realize the difficulty in selling their policies of preemptive war where our own military personnel would be killed. Whether it was the Lusitania, Pearl Harbor, the Gulf of Tonkin, or the Maine, all served their purpose in promoting a war that was sought by our leaders. Quote, Ledeen writes of a fortuitous event. He wrote this in 1999. He says, "Of course, we can always get lucky. Stunning events from outside can providentially awaken the enterprise from its growing torpor and demonstrate the need for reversal, as the devastating Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor so effectively aroused the U.S. from its soothing dreams of permanent neutrality." Amazingly, Ledeen is here calling Pearl Harbor a lucky event. The Project for a New American Century, as recently as September 2000, likewise foresaw the need for a Pearl Harbor event that would galvanize the American people to support their ambitious plans to ensure political and economic domination of the world while strangling any potential rival. Recognizing a need for a Pearl Harbor event and referring to Pearl Harbor as being lucky are not identical to support and knowledge of such an event. But this sympathy for a galvanizing event, as 9/11 turned out to be, was used to promote an agenda that strict constitutionalists and devotees of the founders of this nation find appalling, is indeed disturbing. After 9/11, Rumsfeld and others argued for an immediate attack on Iraq, even though it was not implicated in the 9/11 attacks. The fact that neoconservatives ridiculed